Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. This time we're going to be looking at the book of Genesis, chapter 34. Yeah, a story packed with family drama and really gets us thinking about justice and revenge. And it might not seem like something that we can relate to today, but believe me, there's some really interesting parallels we can draw from this. So to get us started, we have Dinah, Jacob's daughter. She's out visiting some women in a nearby town when she's taken and violated by Shechem, the son of the local ruler. This act is a huge offense against her and her family.
Right. And it's really important to understand that back then, family honor was everything. This violation wasn't just personal, it was a stain on her family's entire reputation.
Exactly. So her brothers, Simeon and Levi, they're furious. They want justice and to protect their family, so they come up with a plan.
Mhm.
They tell Shechem and his father, okay, we'll let this marriage happen, but all the men in your city have to be circumcised as a sign of good faith. Now, circumcision was a really significant ritual back then. It was a symbol of their covenant with God and their commitment to the community. So by demanding this, Simeon and Levi are setting a pretty dangerous trap.
Yeah, it's almost like they're using this deeply religious practice to get what they want. And Shechem, maybe because he wants to make things right with Dinah and her family, he agrees. He convinces all the men in his city to go through with it.
But while they're recovering,
Mm-hmm.
still vulnerable, Simeon and Levi attack. They kill all the men, including Shechem and his father, and they take Dinah back home.
And this is where we really start to think about where's the line between justice and revenge. Even their father, Jacob, is horrified. He's scared of what the surrounding communities will do.
He says, look, what you did was reckless. You put a target on our backs. But Simeon and Levi defend themselves. They say they had no choice but to protect their sister. This story, even though it's ancient, has some really relevant themes for us today. It forces us to think about how we respond when we feel wronged, how we seek justice, and how we handle that line between righteous anger and actions that could be destructive.
Yeah, and what's so interesting is that the story doesn't give us easy answers. It presents this moral dilemma, and we have to grapple with these complex issues ourselves.
So how do these themes from this ancient story play out in the complexities of our modern lives? That's what we'll explore next.
It's really interesting how this story doesn't just hand us the answers. It makes us face those kind of messy human emotions and how hard it is to try and find justice in a world that, well, often doesn't feel very just.
Yeah, it's like it's making us look at ourselves and how we react when something bad happens to us or to someone we care about. I mean, we've all felt that anger, that urge to get back at someone. But this story is kind of warning us about letting that anger take over and lead us to do things we regret.
Yeah, like Dinah's brothers. I mean, you can understand why they wanted to protect their sister and their family's reputation, but their plan, all that deception and the violence, like, makes you wonder, did they actually get justice or just cause more suffering?
It seems like they just caused more pain and violence that could gotten way out of control.
Hmm.
We still see that today, don't we? Conflicts that just keep escalating because everyone wants revenge.
Absolutely. It doesn't matter if it's personal arguments, stuff on social media, or even problems between countries. That urge to fight violence with more violence is something we're always struggling with.
So how do we break free from that? What can we learn from this story about getting justice the right way in our world today?
That's the big question, isn't it? I think one thing we can learn is how important it is to control ourselves. When someone treats us unfairly, it's natural to want to lash out and get even. But the story of Dinah reminds us to take a breath, calm down, and really think about what might happen because of what we do.
It's about finding that balance between being angry and doing something thoughtful. How can we use that energy, that passion for justice, without causing more pain?
Exactly. And being honest is so important too. Remember how Simeon and Levi tricked everyone? It might have seemed like a good idea at first, but it ended up making things worse. It ruined any chance of finding a peaceful solution.
Yeah, it really shows how important it is to be honest. Even when things are heated and we're hurt, if we want to build trust and find common ground, we got to be honest.
That brings us to another important point. Really listening to each other and trying to understand. Imagine if instead of planning revenge, Dinah's brothers had tried to see things from Shechem's side. What if they'd tried to understand why he did what he did and figure out how to move forward in a way that respected their sister without all that violence?
It's a powerful thought. It makes us think about how we can work towards making peace, even in the toughest situations.
This story, even though it's so old, has wisdom that's still true today. It reminds us that real justice isn't just about punishing someone. It's about making things right again, respecting everyone, and finding solutions that make the world more just and compassionate.
And in our lives today, that can mean all sorts of things. It could be about fighting for fairness at work, speaking out against injustice in our communities, or even forgiving someone who's hurt us. It's about taking those ideas of justice, honor, and understanding, and making them part of how we live every day.
It's about seeing that even with all the complicated things in our world today, those old desires for fairness, respect, and dignity are still important. And maybe by thinking about stories like Dinah's, we can find a way to make those ideals real so justice and compassion can win.
Yeah, it's like this story is challenging us to think differently. Instead of an eye for an eye, what if we tried to understand and hold people accountable and actually
Hmm.
try to fix the harm that's been done?
Right. That's what a lot of people call restorative justice. Recognizing the pain, holding the person responsible accountable, and working towards healing for everyone involved.
It sounds like it takes a lot of courage and empathy, letting go of that need for revenge.
It does. But it can be really powerful. When we break free from that cycle of violence and revenge, we open ourselves up to real change, not just for ourselves, but for our relationships and even our communities.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into this tough story,
Hmm.
I keep thinking, what if Dinah's story had been one of reconciliation instead of revenge?
That's a really deep question. Could Dinah Shechem and their families have found healing and understanding? Could they have overcome their differences and built a new way forward based on respect and compassion?
It makes you realize that even when awful things happen, there's always a chance to choose a better way.
We won't always get it right. We're only human. But by remembering stories like Dinah's, maybe we can at least try to be more thoughtful in how we react, more understanding, and braver in choosing healing over more pain.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it's given you something to think about, some new insights to take with you as you go about your life. Remember, even the oldest stories can have wisdom for us today.